What's going on? This is Travis Witherspoon. Welcome to another morning episode of Trade with Travis. Hope everybody's doing very well. I have 6:32. I'm all over the place this morning. Let's try this over again. Hope everybody's doing very well. Hopefully you end up having a good morning. Hopefully you end up having a good trading day. Um, Today, what we're going to end up going over is what ended up happening yesterday. Is there certain pairs and activities that we can be able to get into? Obviously, the markets have made their moves. If you end up setting up your moves and basically end up placing them in the order in the area that we end up getting into, hopefully you was able to withstand being able to exit out and re-enter. Obviously, based off of our overall strategy, the market literally just hit I take profit zone on US 30 and a few other places, and we're going to end up going through it right now. Let's go ahead and get to it. My name is I'm not a CTA, so I'm not going to tell you whether to buy or to sell. What I'm going to do is teach you education, and from the education, you can be able to make your own informed decision. Now, understand that trading involves risk. It involves risk of being able to make money, also involves risk of being able to lose money. So please keep that in mind. And understand that past performance is not indicative of future results, which means that if you end up making money yesterday, it's not promised that you end up making money today. So yesterday was a wild one, and wasn't necessarily a wild one for the reasons why people may end up thinking. Obviously, we end up having a big movement earlier this week where the market ended up falling down almost 1,500 points. So this week was a very lucrative week if you was able to manage it correctly. I was able to hit on some spots, and then there were some spots that I wasn't able to hit on uh, this week or going into the trades yesterday. Um, and somewhat happy but somewhat disappointed at the same time, if that makes sense when it comes down to certain trades. Obviously, you would like to be able to get as much as you possibly can. There was one trade in particular, the US 30 trade. I ended up getting some of it, but didn't get all of it because I didn't re-enter on the sell trade. But we'll talk about that. I want to make sure that my good old folks on for YT can be able to see what we're doing. So if you would give me one quick second, I'm going to make sure that they're right. For the people that are popping in or watching live, make sure that you end up saying, hey, type in a pair that you would like for me to be able to take a look at as well. And hopefully you end up making money off of some of the pairs that we end up talking about. Like, for example, gold. Gold finally ended up making its move and finally ended up getting into it and finally ended up hitting profit off of that move after not trading it for so goddamn long. So it's pretty good to be able to get back into my gold bag as well. Uh, Hold on for a second. Let's see. Um, ba, 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 da, ba. Let's see. No, I didn't want to do that. Let's see. I'll do changes. There we go. Okay. Let's see. Content. Base. And almost done. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the indexes first because that's going to end up being a pretty simple day. I don't think that from a trading aspect, you probably might end up finding like the best trades to be able to get into. From a trading, sorry about that. All right, but we'll go ahead and jump into those pairs as well. Let's go ahead and talk about what's happening with the economic calendar, and I'll go ahead and move a little bit faster. Sorry about that. Yesterday, we ended up having retail sales. I said that wasn't going to make any move until I ended up seeing what happened with the retail sales. It actually ended up being from the control group. It actually ended up being 0%, but for a positive note, it actually ended up being a little bit better than what it was actually expected. Now, I ended up expecting that the market was going to end up being bearish based off of that 1,500 point drop to obviously Wednesday, building out the consolidation, and then after that, seeing the consolidation actually break on Thursday. The consolidation broke about midday to about the end of the day when it came down to that movement. And the overall thought process was very simple on this one. And I'm going to tell you, kind of jumping into this one and kind of jumping out, kind of jumping in and jumping out. The execution for me was was kind of poor on that last end. I'm going to explain why. because I had an opportunity to be able to make it way more of a positive day than what it was. Uh, but we'll kind of get through it. So essentially, what ended up happening was this: market ended up having that 1,500 point drop. We ended up seeing that. We talked about early on Wednesday that I wasn't interested in being able to make a trade on Wednesday because I figured that the market was going to end up building out consolidation. That consolidation actually ended up going from 31,300 all the way down to 31,0. It was at 31,070 when I started to look at it. But what ended up happening from there was that obviously we ended up placing in our orders at support, and then after that, watch the market end up breaking down. The first time I got into the trade was actually on Wednesday. Market ended up falling down, got placed into a sell, quickly automatically popped up, took a loss on that one. Then after that, redid what I was going to end up doing for the actual entries. Then after that, market on Wednesday ended up popping up to the upside, tapping me into the trade. And then after that, quickly turned around and going from there. So I lost 2 on Wednesday, but I was able to make that back on the movement that ended up happening with Nas, and we ended up talking about that one a little bit earlier. But from there, when the market ended up going inside of consolidation again, I ended up focusing in on these points right here: 1, 2, 3. And I was like, okay, well, as long as the market, once it ends up breaking below 31,070, then I'll be interested in being able to take that trade. Market ended up doing that, breaking out, pushing back up to the halfway point, and then after that, started to break out again. And I thought, okay, this is the move. I thought we were going to end up being good. I placed in another entry at 31,000. Then after that, from here, this is where I ended up getting faked out. Market ended up popping up. I was up almost 100 points based off of this movement. It started to go back here, and I did not take profit. So the one thing that I will say about this is typically my hard line rule has always been if the 15 minutes in a buy zone, if the 15 minutes in a buy zone, I feel like the market is going to end up making its U-turn, and that's exactly where it was. Typically, I get out of the move if I see a candlestick formation, and I said it to myself literally when it happened. I was like, please go ahead and take this profit and go ahead and eat this win so I could be able to make up for the losses that I end up having. I end up making up the losses for this pair that I end up having right here. I did not do that, even after seeing this hammer and being able to get placed in, because I thought it was going to end up being a breakout, a retest, and then after that, pushing back down. My stop loss at this particular point in time was at 31,180. And what ended up happening was that I let the market get back inside of the consolidation, which is a no-no. And it pushed right back up here, and it ended up taking me out for a bulk of those trades again. Now, I'm going to talk about strategy, and I am going to talk about trades, but more than anything, I want to talk about psychology when it comes down to this style of trading. There will be times where you're going to end up getting wicked out on trades, and there will be times where you will be in profit, kind of like right here and right here, and you're just going to take profit and have a little bit of faith that the market will go ahead and kind of push back, and then give you another opportunity to be able to get in. Or if it does get back in, then you got to look for a continuation trade, which would be a counter trend line break to be able to get in for that movement. And what ended up happening was legitimately that the market ended up pushing back up to the upside. I started setting orders for the buy trade at 31. I was at 31,304. The market got all the way up to 31,298. And instead of looking at being able to sell, because I thought that the market was going to end up selling kind of like right here and right there, obviously we look at orders on being able to buy to the upside. And because of that, the market ended up falling. This was in an area where I wasn't necessarily paying attention. Market fell down to this level once again and finally crashed through and kind of ended up breaking. So kind of upset about the full trade. I ended up getting some off of it, but didn't mess up. Could have got in a little bit more, could have stayed in a little bit more. But it did go down to take profit. It literally just hit take profit about 15 minutes ago. Brad Hogg, what's going on? Hope everything's going well with you. But yeah, game plan was still solid. Didn't get all of the move. Obviously, it went down and created this natural support right there. And if you would have caught it on the counter trend line break off of the continuation, or basically the breakout of that move, then you would have been good. But you had to stop and you had to readjust your trade. So you had to give up some capital to be able to make some based off of that. What's going on, Brad Hogg? Hope everything's going well with you. If you got a pair to be able to talk about, let's go ahead and talk about it. Now, let's talk about what's the next move from here? Because obviously we've been talking about this trade since legitimately um, September the 5th, when the market went into this large consolidation before. Now, the biggest thing is this. When we take a look at previous history, yes, I am. If we take a look at what's happening for its overall move, the market fell down to this natural support at 30,700, and it's basically in the middle of that consolidation. It's proving that the market is truly bearish overall. Now, with that being said, um, we are expected that we're going to end up seeing some type of U-turn that's about to end up happening today. So there's going to end up being some built-out consolidation. The question is going to end up being, where is it going to be? Because we're getting very close to the point to where once this market starts to fall below 30,400, that it could go ahead and go back into that free fall type of move, all the way down to 26,000. But don't know if that's going to truly happen. We know that obviously it's built out consolidation. We know that we're kind of falling within this overall large consolidation spot that ended up happening from June 29th to um, July 19th. So the next area where I would like to be able to place my trades and try to get out will end up being right around 30,500 for this position. Um, so today, to me, what I'm expecting that's going to end up happening is that we're probably going to end up seeing a little bit of a retracement, and we might end up seeing that there might be some built out, um, might be a little bit of built out continuation moves based off of this one. Um, but until there's some consolidation that's actually built out in this position, there's really no trade to be able to take, at least in the morning. Obviously, it's 6:30. Well, obviously it's 6:45. I think some stuff will kind of build out a little bit later on today before the 9:30 open. Remember, it's Friday. The market's already done moved over. Market's already done moved over 2,000 points to the downside. I don't expect that we're going to end up seeing much from all of these pairs for what's like a big extravagant move. These may be not more than scalps and plays and everything else. The trades that we end up talking about from the beginning of the week are now officially over with. Our indicator on the right that you have in blue and yellow, that is buying profile. Um, if you're interested in being able to learn a little bit more about that and how we end up doing it, that is the main portion of what we end up doing with the Vortex strategy. Um, Essentially, it's kind of the bell cow of what we end up doing for everything. You can find it on TradingView. If you go to indicators, um, you go to indicators, go to technicals. Once you end up going to technicals, go to volume profile. Once you end up doing that, I use the visible range volume profile that you can be able to click on. If you have the pro version, so that means that you can be able to get to it and be able to click it on and place it in. I typically use it off of the hour and the 15 minute. So obviously, while you're watching me, you end up seeing that mainly every time that I end up talking about it, it's based off of the hour and 15 minute. Let's go into the other trade that we ended up getting into, which was NAS 100. NAS 100, I fared out a little bit better than what I did with US 30. But a couple things end up happening with this one as well. Um, Market, when it ended up having this big drop from a few days ago, when we end up making that substantial movement from Monday to Wednesday. From Sunday to Wednesday, when the market actually ended up dropping. We talked about, okay, well, it's going to build out a consolidation, but at the same time, it was showing to be a upward channel. Uh, now you're welcome. It ended up showing to be an upward channel, and that's exactly what it ended up being. So this box that we end up having, that I ended up talking about before, I was like, either it's going to be an upward channel, or it's going to end up being a continuation move, because most of the moves that we end up seeing have been either rising wedges or some type of flag before this market actually started to be able to fall. And that's exactly what we end up getting. Rising wedge, market end up falling, rising wedge, market end up falling again. I'm sorry, rising channel on this one, market end up falling with a breakout and a retest. Once that breakout and the retest happened, you could have got into the trade when the market ended up breaking out of that counter trend line break. What I ended up doing, which I'm going to show the box again, was that I ended up catching the market when the market actually ended up actually just following through with that overall consolidation block. I ended up catching it when it ended up breaking this level. So when it broke out, went back up, did not take me out on this one, which I was happy about. Went up to the halfway point, then after that pushed down, completed take profit at 11,860. From there, the market has fell down a little bit more, in which it was basically hitting that second spot that we was talking about, 11,840. Currently, right now, as the market is basically retesting, we're kind of going back to what ended up happening before with that long-term consolidation movement. It's kind of basically back into the middle of that long-term consolidation that started off the summertime. So I'm excited to be able to see how the market's going to end up reacting. I do expect that we're probably going to end up seeing some type of retracement, a little bit built out of consolidation from this medium or basically high volume node that is right here. And as long as this box stays within this area, and then after that looks to be able to break below 11,700, then after that we have some room that we can be able to trade it from 11,700 all the way down to 11,350. So it's a 350 point move that is about to be about to show up in the near future. The question is, well, the thing is, we got to be a little bit patient to allow it to be able to build itself out. I think that it'll probably start building itself out today. And then after that, sometime on Sunday, and then after that, we may end up seeing some trades that we can be able to get into going into Monday. But today, trade's over with in my mind. That movement is over with. We end up having a pretty good move off of that one as well. XPX 500, talked about this one as well in our Monday class, and talked about it as well in our Wednesday class. Said wanted to be able to get in when the market ended up breaking below 39.20. When the market ended up breaking below 39.20, ended up breaking out, giving us a move, popping all the way back up, almost hit us, almost got out of our stop loss, almost hit our stop loss at 39.52. I'm glad I placed it somewhat above the resistance high, and above the high volume node peak of this overall point, or the point of control. Then from there, the market actually ended up rejecting again, placing another sale at 39.05. The first one I ended up taking profit on early is still expected to go to 38.50, but currently right now I do see a little bit of a counter trend line break. If there's one trade that we could be able to take advantage of, it probably might end up being XPX 500 if it does break down. But looking for a continuation trade, meaning that I'm looking for a counter trend line break. Currently, the market right now, from a 15-minute perspective, is getting close to the sell zone. We might end up seeing a little bit of a U-turn to the downside. If you end up seeing a trade like this, or try to go after a trade like this after the movement has already happened, this is a 1% trade. This is not the one that you should be trying to get the most money off of, because you're probably not going to get it. But I will look at a counter trend line break sale, see if we can be able to get it. If there's something there, then I might end up trying to take advantage of it. But I'm pretty happy with my positions for the week. We end up doing very good for the week. Actually end up flipping 2 accounts this week. So super excited about that. Let's see, any questions from my guys from YouTube? Let's see. I don't think so. Let's see. Okay, now let's go into DAX and see what ended up happening with DAX. DAX was very simple, and my problem is that when I looked at this move, I didn't consider how far it could be able to drop because of what it was showing me. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you look at this high volume node that we end up having based off of the 15-minute, obviously we see this large peak right here. Our simple rule is that we don't want to trade inside of consolidation. We want to trade on the outside of it all of the time. And then after that, you have to keep in mind that past consolidation can end up being very worrisome to be able to get out of, because of how the market kind of navigated in that area. So the simple trade that we ended up saying was that we wanted to get in at basically 1300 or 12,998, and wanted to get out at 12,960. We ended up doing that, hit that move, took us out, got in the profit very quickly. Then the market started to consolidate again, gave us a continuation trade, and kept on falling down. Now, because of that, And because the market was in consolidation inside of that area, once again, simple hard line rule: I don't trade inside of consolidation. There's no reason to trade inside of consolidation because you only have a 33% chance of being able to win. Essentially, what ended up happening was that this was in a no trade area for me, and it's still in a no trade area for me. So going into today's trades, I'm not going to look at being able to trade anything aside from this pending sale that I end up having on the outside at 12,595, which was the bottom of this consolidation. If this market falls and hits below this overall area, then I would look at being able to trade that. One thing that is kind of pressing that I am kind of liking to be able to see is if you take a look at what's happening with this volume in general. Matter of fact, let me go to the hour because I want to confirm this because it might end up being okay. There we go. I might be a little bit more aggressive on this one. Let me explain why. We take a look at the hour. This is the last point where the market has strong volume. If you take a look at the numbers, um, it goes from 1.104 million all the way down to 616,000. At this particular point, I would personally hope to see that the market consolidates around this area or give us a continuation trade in this area to look at being able to sell. Now, once this market ends up selling, now we got to go back to what we end up doing from a daily and weekly perspective on where this market could potentially go. Because ultimately, this market could fall all the way down to 10,380. Now, we're talking about over 20,000 points of movement to the downside and being able to break below this large consolidation ended up happening early June. But I mean, early July. But there's a very serious chance that the market could fall down in that area. And because of that, and just looking at where we are when it comes down to pricing for its overall spot, this is the last area where the sellers will be able to fight, or not necessarily will be able to fight, but from a buying perspective, historically has shown that they will fight. So we could see a natural free fall that could happen once the market, if the market ends up remaining to be below this overall area. So DAX will probably end up being a trade that I will pay attention to more than any trade going into next week. Um, my thing is, and what I hope is that the market starts to be able to build out consolidation right here at the natural supports. And what I'm going to ultimately end up doing is I'm going to see, let's see, I'm going to place a box right there. Where's the, okay. Okay. More than likely, what will probably end up happening is that the box will probably end up being created right around 12,009. I'm going to say 12,910, all the way down to where the support is at 12,700. So I'm saying it's probably going to be a 200-point consolidation block that's going to end up being created. If you haven't been with us before, this is the simple rule. We want the market to be able to build out consolidation. Once it ends up building out consolidation, and we end up knowing that we're inside of a box consolidation area, inside of a high volume node, um, then we want to be able to take advantage of it. So I want to be able to see this. I would like to be able to see the market reject. If it rejects, then we're in good position. Then after that, it's going to end up making some type of fall. If this market does break out, I'll probably place a trail stop in to see if this market's going to end up continuing to fall or if it will push back up. If it does push back up, I will have an order on the outside of this looking to be able to buy, and a order right here looking to be able to see if the market comes back up and just only rejects. So if it doesn't break out, I have another sale at a higher point. So I end up having one sale up here. I have another sale down there. And from there, we're looking to be able to catch our third sale down here, going after this position first. And then after that, trying to ride it the rest of the way as the market actually ends up moving down. Type in a wire yes if that makes sense on what the game plan is. Not necessarily us placing in a trade right now, but type in a wire yes on if that makes sense on what the game plan will be in seeing this actually play out. So I'm legitimately hoping that the market pushes up to 12,900 and starts to reject. And if that does happen, and then after that, when it starts to come back down to 12,700. If it bounces off again, then we have a solid trade that we can be able to work off of. I'm going to make sure everybody understands that, because that will be the game plan going into next week. But there we go. Let's see if I can erase some of this. Any questions about that as I kind of work through this? Okay, cool. So that'll be what I'm looking for on that one. Let's talk about gold real quick. Gold was another trade that we ended up getting into. Been talking about gold for godly so god dang on long. And finally end up getting the move that we wanted. Remember L Tran talking about this one. We was talking about this one earlier this week, and he was like, "Hey man, I trade gold all the time." I was like, "I trade gold when the market's giving me the best position." I don't like sitting in slow consolidation. So there was a natural support at 1685. There was a resistance high at 20,000 at 2070. What ended up happening was market ended up falling down and making 1685 a major support. What's going on, Brian? Making 1685 a major support. When 1685 turned into a major support, now we end up having something to be able to play around with yesterday. So essentially, market ended up building out a consolidation around 1690. Once it ended up building out around 1690, ended up placing in the trade at 1684. I got placed in at 1684, I want to say about right here, when the market ended up making its first drop, pushed up, and then after that went up to 1690, and it took me out on the first trade. Same rules always apply. You get placed out, you always got to get ready to enter back in based off of that movement. Once it ended up doing it again, placed in, got into the trade. I moved a trail stop on this one, made some of the movement on that one as well. It tried to push up one more time. I placed in the order a third time. The third time hit. Once the market ended up hitting past 1685, we ended up getting this large wick to the downside. Once it gave us this large wick to the downside, it ended up giving us a triangle. And then after that, I was able to place in another sell. At that particular point, we were looking at being able to get out at 1685, and look at that, bada boom, bada bang, bam, out for us that overall movement. If you was a little bit patient, obviously had to give up some to be able to make some on this one. But if you was a little bit patient and you re-entered back on that next move, then you would have ended up hitting on profit. The small little losses that you would have got erased compared to obviously the win. So on this one, with gold, there's really nothing else to be able to do right now until once again another consolidation block is kind of built up. I do expect, because how the market ended up falling down to this overall area, we'll probably end up seeing some type of consolidation get built out right here, somewhere around here. And once that happens, obviously we'll end up having another opportunity to be able to make a trade off of it. So the question is now, where would the market go? Daily D extension just got hit for its overall movement, which means that we need to see this market start to pop up. And once it starts to pop up, then after that, we can be able to see what the fibs are going to tell us for a downside move. But I'm telling you right now, if the market breaks below 1685, it's going to end up going towards this pivot at 1550. And seeing the market kind of fall down to that downside overall. So all plans were right. It took a little bit of money to be able to get the full movement off of it. The market makers and everybody else were waking out people left and right when it came down to this movement. One thing that I will say, and I'm just going to use this. I'm going to say this for future reference, because a lot of people inside of this room, or the people that be watching this all the time, understand what I'm trying to accomplish ultimately with this overall strategy. Obviously, there's different parts of the strategy that we end up talking about, and that's for our students and being able to go from there. But I'll give y'all a little bit of a hint on this one. When we know that there's built out consolidation and we know what the direction is going to end up being, even if you end up getting stopped out on one of the positions because the market breaks back into consolidation, I always say take the quick and early loss. By taking a quick and early loss, you save yourself capital, or you put yourself into a position to where you can be able to make profit as the market is trying to figure out when it's going to end up dropping. My only problem on this trade that I could have did a little bit better on US 30 was that when the market ended up giving me that move when it broke out of 31, because I got in at 31.89 the last time. My best trade that I felt like I got into was at 31.89 when the market fell and hit this overall low and and started to make that original fall. If you notice, it popped right back up to the overall resistance. If we know that we have more selling pressure, and obviously we know what the direction is going to end up being to the downside, this would have probably been one of those situations to where I probably should have just made a sell up here at the resistance when the market rejected resistance again. Maybe not necessarily catching it right at the high, but possibly catching it right here, and then after that placing a stop loss on the trade up here. And by being able to do that, yeah, if it would have caught my buy trade would have covered up my loss going to the upside, but I still would have had a sell right at the resistance. So if the market would have fell all the way down and truly made its movement, I would have made my money back inside of the actual zone that I end up trying to get when it fell down the first time, and plus more for its overall move. This overall move in general ended up being 500 points for the full consolidation plus the breakout point. The point that we were trying to go after was only 300 points to the downside when the market actually, well, the 380 points when the market ended up falling down to the downside. So could have easily got 500 more just by being able to recognize that we know that this market has rejected off of these points. And even though it looks ugly in the inside, we knew exactly what a resistance and what a natural support was. But the support kept on getting pushed down, obviously, when it comes down to that position. So hopefully that makes any sense. Before I get out of here, any pair that anybody else is interested in, and this would be a good time to be able to talk about what we're doing for the community, and trying to get everything else situated. I am building a Discord group. That Discord group and everything else like that I'll be presenting that in hopefully our Sunday session, and being able to talk about what's going on. I'm sorry, Monday session. And being able to talk about what's going on with that overall group and everything else, and how that end up working. If you're interested in being able to learn a little bit more about that, obviously that end up being a subscription service for a very small fee. You can be able to see way more stuff in what we end up talking about with our strategies and all of the strategies and the automation systems that we end up having, along with what we end up doing in the morning time. That also means that at some point in time, obviously we're trying to build out the community and trying to go from there. At some point in time, that I'm probably going to use that the night group, as a way of being able to let them kind of build out and kind of get their strategies and everything else like that for the people that are actually in that group. But even with that being said, obviously we're going to end up doing a lot of trades on here to be able to make sure that everybody can be able to understand the grasp of what we're trying to do, and be able to see if there's something that they may be interested in, obviously. So with that being said, I do not foresee a trade today. The only trade that I do see that I probably would be interested in will probably end up being with DAX. But remember, we got to see DAX kind of build out this consolidation. If that does happen, then we got a lot of places that we can be able to get into. Oh, we have a place that we can be able to get into and kind of ride this one for as long as I think that it possibly could go. But got a little time in between then. I would like to be able to see the market kind of retrace a little bit before that actually happens, and end up going from there. Like always, make sure that you end up planning your trade your plan, and if you get kicked out, get back in. Don't stop until you actually end up making profit. Everyone, y'all end up having a very good weekend, very good week for his overall trading for everyone, hopefully. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Take it easy.